Every day, we judge people without knowing the whole story. We call someone a liar, a traitor, a selfish person, or a terrible person. After seeing only one moment of their life, we believe one action, one mistake, or one decision is enough to define who they truly are. But what if everything you believed about someone was completely wrong? Welcome back to Lotus and Law. I'm Molly. Every story plants a seed. Every seed shapes your future. Today, I want to tell you a Buddhist story about a disciple who believed he could judge people until his master showed him something that changed him forever. Long ago, deep within the mist-covered mountains, stood an ancient monastery where people traveled from every corner of the empire to seek the wisdom of Master Jiyin. Among all of his disciples, there was one young monk named Azan, who was exceptionally intelligent, fearless, and confident in his own judgment. He had memorized countless Buddhist scriptures and could easily defeat senior monks in debate, which made him believe he understood people better than anyone else. On his very first day at the monastery, he exposed the temple accountant for secretly keeping part of the incense donations that belonged to the temple. The next day, he publicly criticized an elderly monk whose mind had wandered for a brief moment while chanting the sutras. Soon the monks began to avoid him, not because he was wrong, but because he believed the truth gave him the right to judge everyone. One evening, Azan knelt before Master Jiyin and asked why the monastery continued to accept people who were dishonest, careless, and full of flaws. He believed that a place devoted to spiritual practice should never tolerate those who had already shown weakness or wrongdoing. Master Jiyin quietly looked at the young disciple, as though he were looking at his own reflection from 30 years earlier. After remaining silent for a long time, he finally spoke only one sentence. "Tomorrow at sunrise, come with me to the cliff, and I will show you what karma really looks like." The next morning, before the first light reached the valley, Master Jiyin brought Azan to a lonely cliff overlooking a narrow mountain path. The cold wind swept across the rocks while silence filled the valley below. Master Jiyin slowly raised his hand and pointed toward the winding road beneath them. "Look carefully," he said, "because what you are about to see will challenge everything you believe." Far below, a fierce-looking bandit carrying a long sword slowly approached a poorly dressed woman, holding what appeared to be a sleeping baby in her arms. The terrified mother fell to her knees and begged for mercy while shielding the child against her chest. The bandit continued walking toward her without saying a single word. As he slowly raised his sword, Azan could no longer control himself. "Master, we have to stop him. This is pure evil." Master Jiyin gently placed one hand on Azan's shoulder and calmly replied, "Wait. Look more carefully, not at the sword. Look into the eyes of the bandit. Then look at the mother's left hand." Azan forced himself to stay still and stared into the valley below. At that very moment, the frightened mother suddenly reached beneath her torn sleeve and pulled out a long silver needle coated with dark poison. Her terrified face disappeared in an instant and was replaced by a cold expression filled with hatred. Just as the sword began to fall, she drove the poisoned needle directly toward the bandit's throat. To Azan's complete shock, the bandit did not move. He simply released his sword, lowered his head, and allowed the poisoned needle to enter his flesh. As he slowly collapsed to his knees, he whispered with deep sadness, "I returned everything I stole exactly as you asked. I thought becoming the villain would finally repay my debt. Why do you still want me dead?" Azan stood frozen. Nothing he was witnessing made any sense. The woman slowly stood up and looked down at the dying man without the slightest trace of pity. "If you remain alive," she said, "you remain the only person standing between me and the gold hidden beneath this mountain. You believe returning the stolen wealth could erase what you did. Nothing can erase what you took from me." The bandit closed his eyes and quietly smiled. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps this is the ending I deserve." Only then did Azan notice that the baby had never cried. The blanket was slowly pulled away, revealing not an infant but a disabled man, whose legs had been badly deformed since childhood. Azan felt the blood drain from his face. Only moments earlier, he believed he had witnessed an innocent mother defending her child against a heartless murderer. Now, everything had been turned upside down. "Who is the real villain?" he whispered. Master Jiyin looked toward the valley with complete calm. "You are asking the wrong question. You are trying to decide who is good and who is evil." After seeing only one moment in lives that began long before today, 30 years ago, that dying man was one of the most feared bandits in these mountains. He murdered the woman's parents and sold her into slavery, while her younger brother barely survived the fire that destroyed their home. The disabled man beside her is that very brother. For 30 years, she waited for this moment. Azan lowered his head, unable to speak. Everything he thought he understood about justice had collapsed before his eyes. Master Jiyin quietly said, "You have only seen one page of a book that has been written for decades, yet you were ready to judge every character inside it." Azan could no longer understand who deserved compassion and who deserved blame. He looked at the dying bandit and asked whether a man who had once murdered innocent people still deserved pity after everything he had done. Master Jiyin remained silent for a long time before speaking again. "If you had seen only this morning, you would believe he was a repentant man. If you had seen 30 years ago, you would believe he was a monster. But neither picture is complete." When the bandit was only 6 years old, his father died during a winter famine, leaving his mother with nothing but debt. Not long afterward, she married another man who drank every night and treated the boy as though he were an unwanted burden. Whenever the harvest failed, the boy became the target of his anger. He was beaten until his body was covered with bruises and locked outside the house, even during freezing nights. No one in the village ever asked why the child was always covered with wounds. No one stepped forward to protect him. By the age of 12, he had already learned that fists spoke louder than kindness, and that fear was the only language people obeyed. When he finally ran away from home, the only people willing to accept him were mountain bandits. They praised his violence instead of correcting it. They rewarded cruelty instead of compassion. Year after year, the frightened child slowly disappeared, and the world began calling him a monster. Master Jiyin slowly looked toward Azan. "Tell me who created this bandit. Was it only the child? Was it only the stepfather? Or was it every hand that refused to help?" when help was still possible. Azan lowered his head, because for the first time he could no longer find a simple answer. Master Jiyin pointed toward the woman, who stood silently beside the body of the man she had waited half a lifetime to kill. She too was carried here by the same river. Her parents were burned alive before her eyes. She was sold into slavery before she had learned what childhood meant. Every night she dreamed only of revenge, because revenge became the only reason she believed tomorrow was worth living. For 30 years, hatred kept her alive, just as fear once kept that bandit alive. One was imprisoned by violence. The other was imprisoned by vengeance. Neither of them was truly free. Master Jiyin bent down and picked up a dry leaf that had fallen beside his feet. This leaf did not choose where the wind would carry it, yet it still fell exactly where causes and conditions brought it. People are often the same. Most believe they are making free choices, while they are quietly being pushed by countless forgotten causes they can no longer remember. Azan looked once more into the valley and suddenly realized that every person standing below had once been a frightened child longing to be loved. Some became victims, some became killers, some became both. The master gently placed his hand on Azan's shoulder. When you judge someone after seeing only one chapter of their life, you are trying to describe an entire river by looking at a single drop of water. True wisdom is not deciding who deserves your judgment. True wisdom is seeing that every being is struggling beneath burdens you cannot see. Only then does judgment become compassion, and only then does compassion become wisdom. Azan walked back to the monastery in complete silence, because every belief he had carried up the mountain had been left behind at the edge of the cliff. That evening, Master Jiyin opened the Diamond Sutra and quietly read a single passage. Past mind cannot be grasped. Present mind cannot be grasped. Future mind cannot be grasped. The master slowly closed the scripture and looked toward his disciple. You believed you could judge a person because you believed this single moment was the whole truth. But every person you meet is still changing. Every thought is changing. Every heart is changing. The person standing before you today is not the same person they were 10 years ago, and they will not be the same person 10 years from now. The moment you place a permanent label on another human being, you stop seeing who they are becoming. You only see the story your own mind has created. The master smiled gently. This is why wise people are careful with judgment, not because they cannot see right from wrong, but because they know they cannot see the whole river of causes that brought someone to this moment. In our own lives, we do the same thing every day. A coworker speaks harshly, and we call them arrogant. A stranger cuts in front of us, and we call them selfish. A family member forgets an important promise, and we decide they no longer care. Perhaps they are carrying a burden we know nothing about. Perhaps today is the hardest day of their life. Understanding this does not mean accepting harmful behavior. It means responding with wisdom instead of hatred. We can stop harmful actions without deciding that another human being is beyond compassion. That is the difference between judgment and wisdom. Before leaving the monastery, Master Jiyin offered Azan 3 simple practices that he asked him to remember for the rest of his life. The first was to pause for 3 breaths before judging anyone. During those 3 breaths, simply remind yourself that you are seeing only one page of a life you have never fully read. The second was to separate the action from the person. A harmful action should be corrected, but a human being should never be reduced to a single moment of weakness. The third was to spend a few quiet minutes every evening, looking back on the day. Ask yourself who you judged today, and gently let those labels go. Silently wish that both you and the other person may one day be free from suffering. Years later, people no longer remembered Azan as the brilliant monk who always defeated others in debate. They remembered him as the monk who listened before speaking and understood before judging. Perhaps that is what true wisdom looks like, not knowing who is right, but remembering how little we truly know. The next time you feel certain that someone is a villain, pause for just a moment. You may only be seeing one frame of a story that began long before you arrived. And perhaps the greatest wisdom is not asking who deserves our judgment, but asking who needs our compassion. Thank you for watching. If today's story made you see people a little differently, please leave a comment below. Tell us what changed in your heart, because your words may become the kindness that helps someone else see with new eyes. May wisdom guide your soul. May peace make you whole.